We're ready for Tom. Let me introduce Tom. Introduce Tom.
Oh, thank you. Yes. All right, so I've known Tom for many years. He is the newsletter editor for Capillary Woodturners right now. Hi Tina. He also used to be the program chair for many years, and I was also program chair here, and for years we shared Turners because our meeting is on the Thursday before the second Saturday, and because CW is on the second Saturday. So Tom was always kind enough to drive his demonstrators up to us on a Thursday night so we could share the ones with Capillary, and then he would take them home again. So Tom, thank you very much, as always, for that. Tom is really a Renaissance man. He can talk about history, he can talk about science fiction, he can talk about cooking, he can talk about wood turning. You name it, this man knows it, okay? And he's a hell of a good turner, and he's going to show you that tonight. He's also into texturing and color. So not only is he going to turn a platter, he's going to show you 4 variations on how to cut the rim up and texture the rim and color the rim and all that kind of good stuff. Go for it.
Thank you, sir. Before we
Wherever you want it. It should be good. Okay. All right, let's see if, oh yeah, I can hear myself. I don't know if anybody else can hear me. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me back. As an older person, sometimes I get confused, and I confused your meeting with Kat's meeting, to talk to the Turner's meeting. Your meeting is on a Thursday before our meeting, and theirs is on a Thursday after our meeting. I screwed up. What I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Elliot said. Nobody gets better by themselves, okay? The best thing I ever did was learn to turn from people who really knew what they were doing. So, and like he said, he was there with Nick Cook down at Campbell for a week. Yeah, you turn 8 hours a day, you start getting better. I can turn more than just platters. So for example, this piece is a piece I did last year at Aramont with Elizabeth Weber. So if you have a chance to go to Aramont or Campbell, go. It will make you a much better turner. It will expand your horizons of turning. Elizabeth was making little tiny boxes that look like lemons. So I made a little tiny box that looks like an avocado. And it looks like an avocado. I like making boxes because they're small. And my wife gets excited when we have too much stuff laying around the house. So you're going to make a lot of these. And when I was done, and also, if you're going to look on the internet judiciously. There are people on the internet that are horrible turners, but there are people on there that are really, really good turners. This is Emma Cook, called the Tiny Turner from England. This is a sort of an homage to her because she does bowls that are very similar to this. Okay, but tonight we're going to talk about making platters. And before we get started, I used to be a teacher. So I got handouts.
You're still a teacher.
So I got handouts. All these pieces you see up here are all variations on a theme. They're all made exactly the same way. So what we're teaching you tonight is technique. Okay, we're teaching you technique. And once you learn the technique, you can apply it to anything. So for example, this piece was actually turned by Al Sturt, if you know who Al Sturt is. So he's a great turner, and he was the one that put the design on it and stuff like that. This is a piece that's like you would see from somebody called Stuart Farini, a British guy who does really exciting things. This is another outstart style piece. It's carved and made black. You need something to take to somebody's house because you're going to have a dinner. Go make them a trivet. It's made exactly the same way, but you give it to, you can knock this out in an hour. So all of these pieces, we're going to start the same way. Now, before you start turning anything, your first job is to look at the piece of wood, okay? And I admire some of you folks for trying to turn pieces of wood that have cracks and voids in them. Good luck with that. I've seen people have some really spectacular problems with that. There's a saying, it's just too long to turn crappy wood. Okay. But if that's what you want to do, if you want to turn resin, go turn resin. So whenever you get a piece of wood, the first thing you should do is inspect that wood for cracks or voids or something that might present a problem to you. Okay? So, and once you do that, and once you're satisfied that the wood is sound, you have another thing to do, and that is to figure out what you want your piece to look like. So a lot of people just slap the piece of wood on the lathe and start. But if you know anything about wood, you see the growth rings here? Growth rings? Depending on how you present these growth rings on the lathe will determine what kind of pattern you're going to get in your piece. So if you turn your piece, if this is the top of the piece, and you have this kind of smiley face, you're going to get this classic X pattern. You see it? Okay, you're going to get classic X pattern. If you get a frowny face, you're going to get a series of ovals, like this one. Okay? Is one right or wrong? No, they're different. But if you're the wood turner, you're in charge. You're the one that's turning the wood. Don't let the wood tell you what to do. It's your job to tell the wood what you want to do. Okay. So this technique is a technique I learned from Tom Mersing. Tom Mersing is a great platter turner from Colorado. Now the way he starts his platters is he uses a faceplate. A faceplate is absolutely the most safe way you can turn a piece, period, end of story. Okay, and the way I do this, I made myself a little, kind of my little kit. So the first thing I have is I turn the little piece that fits in my faceplate. It's got a little thing on it. It goes into the faceplate, and I whack it in. And then I use a drill bit that is just slightly smaller than the screws I'm going to use. Now, these are special wood screws. These are not drywall screws. Don't use drywall screws because drywall screws are brittle. And if they break off in your piece, you're going to have a lot of fun trying to get them out. But these are special wood screws. And so they're fairly sharp, and they really do a good job gripping the wood. Now, you can normally get away, if your piece is fairly small, you can normally get away with four screws in your piece. The bigger the piece is, the more screws you want to use. This is a fairly substantial piece of wood, so I'm going to use 6 screws in this. But this is my little kit. And so I have all of the things that I need to attach my faceplate. So the dowel helps me center it. Okay, I've got a centering hole. When I put this on, I had a center hole. because when I did it, I cut it out, all right? And when I put like this and I drill it, it stays in the one place. It doesn't move around, okay? Thank you. I'm not paying him, by the way. Okay. So once we're satisfied that we have done a good job mounting our
Could you say again, the smiley face versus the other face?
the smiley face versus the frowny face?
Could you say that again?
Yeah, if you have these growth rings on the top of the piece, you will get an X pattern.
And the other way?
If you do it if you do it the other way, what you'll get is a series of ovals. Now, if you're turning a bowl and the bowl's got bark on it, if you turn bark side out, you'll get an X pattern. If you turn bark side in, you'll get ovals. Okay? All right. Now, the nice thing about this technique is that we're only going to use 3 tools. This is ash. And I got this a couple of years ago from a dear friend of mine who's since passed away. You're going to have to bear with me. This is not my lathe, and I'm not. It's about 13 inches. It's 7/4, so it's 1 3/4 inches. We're probably going to end up. I want to probably have it end up like an inch and a half. Yeah. Like I said, bear with me, not my lathe. There we go. All right, so. Boy, oh boy, are you funky. All right, there we go. That should do it. Okay, before you ever turn your lathe on, always move your piece to make sure that it's going to move slow, properly. You don't whack into your tool rest, because that would not be good. Before you ever turn your lathe on, you make sure your lathe is zeroed out. The last thing you want to do is have a big piece of wood on and turn it on at 2,000 RPMs and have that thing come flying off the lathe at you. Okay?
I think it's sitting on the wheels rather than the feet, and we don't want to be turning it here on the wheels.
Well, so you're going to have to fix it. This isn't my lathe. I don't know how you guys.
Yeah, it's lagoon. Yeah, the best it'll do. I don't know how to deal with this.
All right, well,
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
all right.
I didn't want it rolling
All
off
right.
as you start turning.
All right, the other thing is, never, ever turn on your lathe unless you're wearing face protection. Initially, I'm going to use a full face shield, because I'm going to make a lot of chips, and they're going to hit me in the face if I'm not wearing the shield. The other thing is I'm wearing a glove. Red gloves, $12, Harbor Freight. Work really nice. They're leather. When you're dealing with dry wood, the chips come off and they're hot. I have literally burned my hand from hot chips. Okay? All right, so now we're going to use 2 different kinds of cuts when we start to shape this wood. The first is a standard, what's called a standard push cut, or we can use a pull cut. And because of the way we're going to do things, we can go in either direction initially. Okay, so I'm turning the light on. Don't stand up, don't stand in front of it. And then I'm gradually going to bring the speed up. All right. So that's about 400, that's a little bit more than 400. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this room round. When you're turning in a couple of different things. You try to use all your senses, okay? When you start getting this piece to round, the sound is going to change, okay? And when you first start off, it's going to have that tick, 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 tick. That's because you got high spots. So use your ears, not just your eyes, when you're turning, because a lot of times that will tell you what the wood's doing. Because the wood is spinning so fast, you really can't see it all. So you can see that this part is getting to round, but this part isn't even close. You're not in a hurry. You're a hobbyist turner. You're not doing this to make money. You're not doing this to create 50 platters, all right? Stop and look and see what you're doing. Like I said, you can also use a pull cut. So you can actually pull. You go. Yes, sir.
For the new members, could you explain why you don't use a roughing gouge to rough that iron?
Well, there's a couple of reasons you don't use a roughing gouge. First of all, it's not a roughing gouge, it's called a spindle roughing gouge. So that means you only use it on spindles. The other reason is the tang, this tool, this piece of steel goes all the way down to here. So it's really, really strong. On a roughing gouge, or spindle roughing gouge, the spindle roughing gouge has a tang about this long and it's only about that wide. So if you get a significant catch trying to do this, you will literally break the tang off, all right? So never think of it as a roughing gouge. Think of it as a spindle roughing gouge, okay?
Which means the grain is going parallel to the
Yes, so the grain, so you only use the spindle roughing gouge when the grain is going like this, back and forth. Yes, sir. All right, off we go. We'll stop and we're cutting. You notice the sound? As it gets rounder and rounder, you can increase the speed. So we're looking to see if we've got, it's all around. But you'll notice there's tear out here, and there's tear out here. There's always tear out on both sides. One what? 1 hour left. All right, faster. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take off some of the meat of this piece. And we're going to do it mostly with pull cuts. That's why I have the face shield on. One of the things you see professional turners do all the time is move the tailstock, or move this when this is turning. That's a really bad idea, okay? They can get away with it because they've been turning for 25 years, and there were a lot of times they were production turners. Don't do it.
Particularly with fat legs.
Don't do it. It's just a bad idea. And like I said, you're not in a hurry.
Talk about that as being a pull cut.
This is a pull cut, yeah. All right, so now we're going to do some design work. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a pencil line on here because we want to know, because we're going to create a curve that's going to go from here up to here. So we want to know a place where we're going to stop. Okay, so right now this is 1.25 inches. So let's do 3/8 of an inch. There we go. Now, like I said, I made a lot of chips, so hopefully I can do the rest of this with just... Now, we can also do what's called a push cut, and that's where you find the bevel of the tool, engage it, and push in toward the center. As you're doing this, you're being supported by this angle, and so this is what's called a bevel-supported cut. Now, the cool part about this is I can take this away. And this is being held with 6 screws. So I'm in pretty good shape, and I should not have any problem at all. Ugh, there we go. Yes, sir. What?
The hole is gonna be in your elbow if you don't get.
Oh, yeah. I'm not gonna haul it. I'm just gonna get, right now, I'm just gonna get this flat. Ah, not my lathe. Sorry, folks. There we go. All right. Classically, a platter has a flat spot in the center. That flat spot is either 50 to 60% of the total width of the piece. So this piece is 13 inches. So this means that my flat spot, half of 13 is how many? 6.5, okay, which is 3 1/4. So what I'm going to do is create, when I'm finished, there's going to be a flat spot here that most of the platter is mostly going to rest on, okay? And right now, our job is to take and go and create a curve, a smooth curve from here up to this line here. Now, this is called the proper name for it is called a catenary curve. And basically, it's a smooth, gentle curve that will go all the way to the end, to the top. There's like 3 basic curves you can use in wood turning. One of them is a catenary curve. The other is what I call a parabolic curve. And the third one is an ogee. And we will show you all of those. Okay. So we're going to go from this line up to this line. And we can use either a series of push cuts, or we can use fill cuts. Okay. We now have a general curve going up from the base here to what's going to become the rim. This thing is going to end up probably with a 1/4 inch rim. But this isn't a particularly attractive form, so we're going to change it. So I'm going to show you how to create an OG curve, okay? Now this is Jimmy Clues's technique. So if you don't like it, you can get on the horn to Jimmy Clues. So the first thing you do is you measure this distance from here to here, and it ends up being, it's 9 centimeters. So we're going to take 3, 1, 2, 3.
Explain what you're doing, on the camera.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're cutting this piece, we're marking it into thirds. From the base, from the marked base to the rim. Okay? And if you look at the back page of your handout, it will describe this process to you. Okay, so now I've marked this into thirds, okay? So now I'm going to use what is called a parabolic curve. So a parabolic curve goes like this, instead of going like this. So I'm going to do a parabolic curve here. Then I'm going to do a parabolic curve down here. Now we're going to mark the center point, the center of this area. It's about right here. Okay. So now this is what's called an inflection point. So an OG curve is basically a little sine wave, okay? So now I'm going to get to use one of my favorite tools. This is a negative rake scraper. This happens to be a Rudy Lopez negative rake scraper. Now, this is one of the friendliest tools you can use, okay? Because it's presented at level with your work. And they're easy to make if you don't have one. This is what's called the included angle. The included angle, the normal angle of the piece like this is 90 degrees. So you take the bottom part and grind it to like 50 degrees, and the top part you grind it between 20 and 30 degrees. So the included angle is less than 90 degrees. And what this does is it gives you a really nice tool that cuts really easily. So now we've smoothed that out from the bottom. And now we're going to smooth it out from the top. And now we've got, there's a little area right here that needs to, a little bit of fixing up. Lovely tool, right? It takes stuff off and it leaves you a really, really nice finish. Okay? At this point, we're getting close to the point where you could actually sand the bottom. Okay. Now our next step is to create what's called a mortise on the bottom of the piece. And like I said before, what you're going to do is you're going to give this a slight I've tried to slope this down just a little bit. Excuse me, please. Thank you. Okay, here's my chuck. It's a nice Talon chuck. I think it's got, all right. Next thing I do is, you can do this any way you want, okay? And this is the way I do it, okay? The way I do it, I think has some benefits, and we can talk about that. First thing I'm going to do is going to measure my Talon chuck, and it's 2 inches. They're not quite, the jaws aren't quite closed. So I'm going to measure just slightly more than 2 inches. Now, I'm sure you've seen lots of woodturners take a pair of calipers with a sharp point on it and measure this and then say, yeah, that looks about right. Okay? You're right. It's about right. It isn't right. One side is slightly to one side. Now, on a platter, that doesn't make much difference. But on a bowl, you're going to make one side of your wall thinner than the other side of your wall. So when you do it this way, I know this is exact, all right? Because I just measured it. But if you want to, and plus, I'm not stabbing a pointy tool into a spinning piece of wood. The people that did that were production turners, okay? They set their calipers once, and all day long, that's what they did. The next tool we're going to use is a parting tool. And normally parting tools are, when you present a parting tool, you present it, in this instance, we're going to present it straight on. We're going to, because what we want, I want this angle to be dead on, as close to 90 degrees as I can get it. Now, one of the things you'll notice is, on this, they have a slight lip here. So you don't have to go down 1/2 inch, or you don't have to go down this much. All you need to do is about that deep. And if you look at the bottom of these pieces, you'll see that the mortise isn't really that deep. So once you get that part started, then you can take your bow gouge and do the rest. So now I have a mortise. At this point, you sand the bottom. Normally, I would sand this to 320 or 400, and I would sand the top to 600. But one of the cool things you can do on a piece like this is you can create some visual interest with this tool. This is a texturing tool, a Sorby mini texturing tool. So if you present it really, really close, what it'll do is it'll create what looks like a little flower. The further out you get, it'll be like a sun, and if you angle it, it'll change the way it looks. But you just push it in. Oh, isn't that sweet? The next tool is a 3-point tool, and what you can do is you can outline that tool, outline this little flower with this, then you can put in a couple of more lines, so when the person turns it over and looks at it, they go, "Oh, how neat!" Okay. Now, we check. Yep, it fits. And we look and say, yep, it's going to clear that. All right, so.
Can I ask, is that a dovetail chuck or is that just?
No, this is a straight chuck. If you were doing a dovetail chuck, you'd put in a dovetail angle. All right. How do you lock this spindle? One of these guys?
Is there a red button you can push in on the side?
This button? Ah, yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's an adapter. Because my chuck, because when I first bought this chuck, I had a 1-inch spindle, and so I had the collars a 1-inch spindle, and so it's easier to get an adapter than to keep changing out the collars. All right. handy dandy thing. It's got a reverse function on it, which is nice. Okay, so when you pre-drill it, they go in easier and they come out. They go in easier and they come out easier. All right. So now we got a platter mostly. You notice that my ruler and my pencil aren't far away? Because I'm a real big believer in, I didn't used to be, but I'm a real big believer now in measuring things. Because when I find that when I measure things, I get much better results in terms of what I want something to look like. Okay. When you're you're mounting this into the mortise, you hold it really flat with your hand, so it's bottoming out against the flat part there. And as you gradually close it, open it, you're opening the jaws. All right, there we are. What's that now?
Can you do that, put the roll with knockdown and stuff on?
I suppose you could. Yeah, you could probably put it on the thing. But, all right, so now, before I do anything, I'm going to see if I did it correctly and see if it's running true. So I've zeroed it out again. You know, the funny thing is that no matter whether you're making bowls or platters, when you put something on when you turn around and put it on the chuck, it always wobbles just a little bit. I suspect that's because over time, your chuck changes a little bit. That's better.
What did you do different?
I just rotated a little bit and pushed it in. But that's what you have to do. You have to find the sweet spot. And when you do that, things work out way better. I'm not a real fan of you. Really, I'm not. Here we go. Or maybe can I go both ways? No, I can go one way. All right. Now, there are some people that believe in their chuck. I don't believe in my chuck. Trust but verify. So I always bring the tailstock up. And you do that for two reasons. First of all, it makes it much safer. But second of all, what happens is there's a big mass here. And this tailstock is adding mass to this. So if there's any vibration, it will actually dampen the vibration and make it easy, make your cuts just that much easier. All right. So off we go. Not thrilled, but life goes on. And again, what I tend to do is I tend to start off on the outside with pull cuts, And then what you've done is you've created a little rim here. And so now I can take and do push cuts, and that little rim acts as my guide. I have my glasses on. But you're probably right, a mask would probably be better. All right. So there I am. So now so normally when you make a platter, your rim is about 30% of your total dimension. So on this piece, that would be 32, 31. A third of 30 is 10 centimeters. So that would be there. No, 10 centimeters, 5 centimeters, dumb. So you divide it by 2, right? All right. Yeah. So that's my rim dimension. So I've made my rim dimension here. So I've got a rim, and I can make it a little, I think I'm going to make it just a touch bigger.
So what proportion are you making the rim?
About a third. But if you've got really attractive wood, and you really want to show off the figure, then it's a good idea to use a slightly larger rim size. So I am not going to worry too much. So I'm using my negative rake scraper. Now, here's a little trick. You want to make sure that your wall thickness is even. So put a pencil mark on it, and then go over it with your negative rake scraper. And if you're even, your wall thickness is even, the pencil mark should disappear. If it's not, you just keep going until the pencil mark disappears and then put another pencil mark on it. Okay? So we're going to decorate this. We're going to decorate this platter because that's what I do. So we're going to go 1/2 centimeter here and 1/2 centimeter there. Time, please.
25 minutes.
All right. Well, Tom. Ah, there it is. Okay, beating tool. There are 2 beads. All right. Now, Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm hollowing out a central bowl. Now, the nice thing about this is that unlike a bowl, the cuts are much shallower. And so it's much easier, particularly if you're a new turner, to do this. Checking to see where the holes are. But the nice thing is that there's a lot of meat in this thing. So I'll be way below the bottom of those holes. However, you can start off with like 1 5/4 wood, and you can punch the hole through the bottom. Almost. Giddy up. Still weird, huh? Those won't go away. Now, at this point, I've lost the edge on this. It's ash, and I've been chopping away on it. So, get out my favorite gouge. This is my absolute favorite gouge. This is the David Ellsworth gouge.
David Ellsworth.
Yep, I bought it from David Ellsworth. The nice thing about this gouge is I love the profile of the tool. All my tools are ground to the same profile, and the metal on this is really good. So this thing holds an edge. Gone. Gone, yes, they're gone. Okay, how many minutes do we have? Okay. Okay, so in order to give this a little bit more finished look, you take your parting tool, and you're going to create a thing called a fillet. A fillet is simply a flat spot. And that gives a little bit of definition to the edge of the bowl, to the edge of the bowl portion of your. Okay, how do you get this thing off? What? Swine. what I'm doing is because the mortise isn't that deep, the last thing you want to do is introduce what is called torque into it, and that would jam it that way. So most of my cuts now are going down toward the headstock. Okay, I have other things I want to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with a negative egg scraper, take it off the load, and next month, y'all can give it to somebody to have them finish it. So when you put it back on the mortar, when you put it back in the mortise, just take off this and then sand it, and that will be your piece next month. Okay. Once you've got something like this, you want to be able to do something else with it. So a lot of times you don't have a lot of so sometimes the wood you're using doesn't have a lot of character to it. But sometimes the wood you're using also has other properties. So for example, this is a piece of oak, and oak and ash have very open grains. So what you can do is you can take your piece and you can flame it like this. And you want to do it until you can see like red areas. Okay? So now that I've flamed it, I take a wire brush, specifically a brass brush, because you don't want a steel brush because it'll mar the wood. And what you're doing is when you do this, the softer parts of the wood get brushed away. Now, you can leave it like that. Where's some other things? I thought I had a brush. There it is. So you can leave it like this, and what it'll look like it's been sandblasted. And then you use like an oil finish on it, and it'll bring up the grain. The other thing you can do is use what are called gilding pastes. Now, you can buy this one at Michael's. It's red and buff. It comes in gold and silver. They may even have a copper. The ones that I really like are these that were Nick Agar's. They were Chromacraft. This one is Verdigris. This one is Saxon Gold. And this one's copper. Any thoughts? What color would you like? Gold, copper, or verdigris? Gold.
I agree, go.
All right, so the thing about this stuff is you take it, put like a pea-sized bit on, a little bit less than a pea-sized bit on your fingertips.
What do you call it again?
Gilding paste.
Guild paste?
Gilding paste. And then you gently rub it over, the grain.
Is that like rub and buff?
It's like rubbing buff, only better.
Why is it better?
It's creamier, it has even more even texture. I just think I think it's just a better product. Now, if you get too much on any one place, you can take some mineral oil and wipe it off and start again. Mineral spirits, I'm sorry, thank you, not mineral oil. Big difference, that's true. Now, again, that was done very quickly. It's not even. If I were to do it again, I would do it. Plus, I don't have any light here, so it's hard to see. Okay, the other thing we've got. The other thing I've got is a piece that's been put into 3 different sections. The first section is raw. There's nothing on it. Pass it.
I'm holding it up. Nobody's grabbing it.
Okay. Give me that. This one is a technique that's Trent Bosch does. It's called the sunflower platter. He also does one called for bowls, he does the mountain bowl, where they look like a mountain range. And this last one is a technique that was done by Al Sturt. So what Al does is he takes and puts down what's called gesso, which is a material that they use to stiffen up canvases before they paint on them. And it comes in 2 colors, white or black. You could probably mix other color in with it if you wanted it to look like that. In fact, on his website, there's actually a blue one. So I suspect you can mix blue other colors to make this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, now again, I can mount this, because of this mortise here, I can mount it back on the lathe. And I can do things with it. So the first thing we're going to do is a technique that I learned from Jimmy Clues and a guy from Texas called Texas George. And it's called double dyeing. Double dyeing. So you dye twice. So the first dye, and normally we use, to do this, I recommend you use stains that are alcohol-based. The reason we're using alcohol-based is because they evaporate fast. Okay. They dry fast. So what I've done now is I put this on here, and I'm going to wipe it off so it goes a little faster. Okay, and while it's drying, I'm going to take this coping saw and finish cutting out these petals. Now, Trent Bosch has all kinds of cool equipment. So he's got like an air saw and all this other crazy stuff. but I'm using an old-fashioned coping saw. And you'll notice that, guess what? It does exactly the same thing that Trent Bosch's fancy stuff does. But Trent Bosch gets paid a lot of money. Gets paid a lot of money, so he's got to do things fast. Bonk. All right, so now I've got pedals. And I can use a reciprocating carver. If you've never used one of these are so much fun. And they make life, particularly if you like to carve, they make life a lot easier. And FlexCut has a really nice set of gouges that will fit into this and they will fit on this hand piece, okay? FlexCut hand piece, okay? So if you didn't want to go out and buy one of these for 75 bucks, you could buy one of these for 20. And all of these gouges will fit into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. Yes, sir? 75 bucks for this. 20.
But what is it?
It's a handle. And all these, so this here.
Yeah, but that one has a motor and everything.
Yeah, but this, you had a motor here and a motor here. Oh, this motor. Come on. So again, so the nice thing about this is that until you push on it, nothing happens. So nothing happens. So now what I've done is I've outlined this. Take a plano drill, open the sesame. I know they're Harbor Freight. $59 when they're on sale. Not a bad deal. Plano sanding mandrel. When 80 grit. Glasses. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Just because I'm not turning doesn't mean I'm not going to kick up little bad kitty. Get the idea? So you're shaping this, you shape it initially, you can shape it with a chisel, a hand chisel, and then you use your sanding mandrel to shape the petals. So you'd shape the bottom petals as well. You'd shape it from the bottom as well. You could if you wanted to, but this is for people that don't want to go out and spend, 150, 200. There you go. Exactly. And so again, this, if I was going to make this truly into a bowl, I would have thinned out this rim before. Okay, so my black is dry, mostly. I'm using a piece of 220 sandpaper to take the black dye off. Black dye gone. Then we go with a different color. Now this one happens to be, this is a chestnut stain in blue. Blue. Chestnut stain. Well, and you can't hear. Oh my goodness.
I can still feel it, that's wrong with I can still feel it.
Okay, this stuff is really, really, really. Don't spill it on the floor.
Shouldn't get mad at the old guys. We can't.
Yeah, if you're talking about, these are like, in paint, gold is the best acrylic paint. This is the best stain. Yeah. So what happens is when you do this double dyeing technique, particularly on woods with open grains, the black seeps in first. And it goes in, and when you go over the top of it with blue, you get a real good contrast, okay? So there is, okay, so there's a bowl, there's a thing with gold on it, and now we're gonna take, and this is Al Sturt's technique. So what you do is you take your gesso and you paint it on your rim. Go ahead, you paint the gesso on your rim, and then you make designs. So actually, Al actually made this design. It's a series of triangles, okay? He also has other shapes. He's got squares, and he's got dots, and he's got all kinds of things. So if you go to Al's website, and it's listed in the handout I gave you, you can see a variety of different treatments that you can do. So this is simply just follow the line.
it off.
Okay, so I hope this gives you an idea that when you make a platter, you're not just stuck with, it's a nice platter, but it's, what? Oh, it's a nice platter, but it doesn't look like very much. You have other options. You can carve it, you can paint it, you can carve it. So all of those options are open to you once you learn this technique. And if you look at this, and if you pass it around, you'll notice that the colors have really, the color really is attractive now. Okay, do I have any questions?
Covered it, man.
Was I clear?
Not at all, no.
Not for real yet.
That's all right. It's always nice to have somebody in the audience for comic relief.
Outstanding.
Okay.
The first gouge that's used for the line,
I'm sorry?
the first gouge that's used, that was a half-inch bowl gouge?
It's a 3/8, I think, 3/8.
All right, so it's a bowl gouge.
It's a bow gouge, yes. So they're both the same bow gouges. This is a one-way, and this is a David Ellsworth. If you look at the grinds, the grinds are exactly the same. Okay? If you're looking for a bow gouge, you can't do much better than this style. This is actually called an Irish grind. And what it does, it's got a big swept back wing. So you notice I was taking those long cuts on this. Well, you get to use the entire length of the gouge rather than just the tip. So you can really move quite a bit of wood with this.
You can also get a good catch.
And you can get a good catch. And if you drop your handle way down and use a shear scrape, you get all this area to do a shear scrape. So it gives you a really wonderful, it's very versatile. And you notice I was going across the bottom of the mortise down there. I could actually go across the bottom of the mortise, so 55-ish, 55.4. Point 42. Yeah, so I've been very, very fortunate that I've gotten to learn from the best. I learned from David Ellsworth. I learned from Nick Agar. And my advice to you as new turners and novice turners, whenever you get a chance to learn from somebody who's really good, take it, okay? It will make your turning so much better. It'll make it much more enjoyable. And even though you might be out a few bucks, in the long run, it's going to save you so much effort and give you so much more, you'll have so much more enjoyment, okay? And I thank you for inviting me, and I hope what I showed you was useful. What's that?
That was outstanding. Hard to demonstrate all the final techniques. You have to be set up very well to show that part. All the different.
You're welcome.
Excellent.
Yeah, so this is really a nice set of gouges because
Isn't that called a reach here or something? So Mike has recorded it.
need two power supplies to?
Yeah, they're plugged into each other. That made no sense to me at all. But that's a computer that Paul got from surplus at the University of Maryland.
Oh,
So,
can't complain too much.
yeah. Is all the Oxford in Oxford?
I think so. Except for, it was a little box that wasn't in there. A little box? Not a box.
USB?
No. It was through, this. I don't know where this goes.
Oh, yeah, it was.
It was not in here when I opened it up.
Where was it?
You know, but it's like
it ought to
belongs in there, yeah. Used to this.
Yeah, that goes the rest of the way out. Yeah, it must have been in